Jay washes his hands in the restroom, and it causes him pain. His wrists are covered in bruises. How did it come to this? In fact, it all happened after a wild night with Un. Says that he feels comfortable when he's around G. He believes their relationship thrives without pressure, serving as a kind of stress relief. Jay is confident that as long as he's with everything will be fine. What will their complicated relationship turn into? Says he eagerly awaits their new agreement. Jay wakes up the next morning. His entire body aches once again. Has started his usual routine. The boy heads to the shower. The night had been wild once more. Even Jay's throat hurts. But how could he refuse when this boy looks at him with such eyes? The alarm rings, showing it's 7 in the morning. Jay thinks it's time for to finish his shower. Jay wonders whether his hair always falls so freely or if he fixes it at work. Sometimes he changes his cologne. Once dressed, he came into the bedroom to Jay. The boy says he thought he could handle it. Strokes his cheek and tells him to just be more careful. After all, they're both here to enjoy themselves. Jay admits that it's true. He really does enjoy it because he likes so much that he can't help himself. He loves how touches him. But he says they need to go, and it's time to get ready and head out. Jay thinks he just has to manage. How did it come to this? Starts the car and remarks that this place is as vast as the largest hotel in Jeju. Asks if he's truly okay with it. Jay, fastening his seatbelt, responds that they're no amateurs in such matters. He says he's worked at similar establishments before, so needn't worry. After the interview, Ja bids farewell to the employee, who leaves the party consultation in his hands. The boy assures her she can rely on him. The woman remarks that they'll likely be planning major construction projects soon. Jay says the construction will be finished before they even realize it, and that's when the real hustle will begin. However, they won't find another company like this one in Korea, as they take care of everything. The woman says she's counting on him and mentions that their club is, so to speak, exclusive. She adds that it's their first time hosting such a grand reception. Jay comments that he thought the place was so popular they must be constantly renovating. The woman explains that interior design is always their priority, given how exclusive their guest list is. She shows him the hall where the lounge area is located, where they'll host the evening event. She notes that for the next 2 weeks, they'll be working non-stop until the construction is complete, after which the hall will be closed. Jay says they'll inform her immediately once a date is set. The woman asks if he'd like to quickly take a look inside if he has the time. Jay considers giving it a brief glance before returning to the office to finish his work. He says he can stay for a short while, but he'll be coming back several more times before the construction begins anyway. The woman holds an electronic key to the lock. She explains that depending on his access level, he'll be able to enter specific hotel zones. She'll make sure a key is ready for him by his next visit. She mentions that part of the lounge is reserved for VIPs, so he'll need to be careful with it. Suddenly, the woman remembers she has to head upstairs, and since she's leaving, she asks him to have a drink on her behalf. With that, she bids him farewell. Jay looks around and realizes the place is undeniably luxurious. He considers replacing all the tables with stone countertops. He also thinks about installing an additional wall. He decides the first step is to inform the builders and tries to recall how much an interior design team would cost. A glass of alcohol is placed in front of him. A man asks what he's doing here all alone. Jay looks at him and wonders if this man is a celebrity. He's very handsome. The man asks if he can buy him a drink. Jay is caught off guard and can't find the words. Instead, he picks up the glass and thanks him. The man asks if he came alone and says they haven't met before. The man introduces himself as Un. Jay shares his name. Un asks if he doesn't recognize him. Jay guesses he might be an actor. Un replies that his clients are celebrities, so that makes him an agent. Jay thinks about how he left in the middle of the workday, and now it's too late to return, so he should probably make a call. He glances at his watch, but Un covers his hand with his own. Un says that G has hurt his feelings. He adds that people usually don't watch the time when they're with him. Suddenly, he kisses Jay's hand. Un asks if, in that case, he'd like to try something else with him. And that's how he ended up in his bed. The alarm rings. It's 9 a.m. Jay calls Mr. Kim. He hadn't expected to be this late. On the phone, Jay explains that he's running a bit late and will try to get there as soon as possible. As if being late wasn't bad enough. He still has to wear yesterday's clothes. Jay puts on his shirt and tries to find his tie. Un comes up behind him and ties it around his neck. He sees the boy is in a hurry, though he had hoped they could have breakfast together. Holding G close, he asks if he's rushing off to work. Jay barely manages a yes. This boy makes Jae feel incredibly flustered. Un apologizes, saying he doesn't know how to tie it from the front. Jae says it's fine as it is. Un tells him it's all set. Jae thanks him, and Un replies that he's always available to help. Ji asks if Un doesn't need to head to work as well. Un replies that he's in no rush. Jae says that in that case, he'll head out first. At the door, he pauses. He hands his phone to Un. He asks him to save his number, mentioning that he'd like to try something else with him again. Un takes the phone. At work, Ji apologizes for being late. His boss says that since he's usually punctual, she'll pretend she didn't see anything. Jae breathes a sigh of relief. At his desk, Un receives a message. It's from Joe. He asks if Un is free on Saturday evening. They both arrive at the restaurant. On the stairs, Un asks how his bruises are. Jae replies that he's feeling better. They are served a variety of delicious dishes. At the table, Un asks if Jae is sure he's really okay. Jae wonders how many more times he'll ask, but reassures him that he's fine. Un says that wasn't quite what he meant. Suddenly, Un asks if Ji has ever been in a relationship like the one they're in now. Jae recalls the previous night. He says he's tried something similar. Jae wonders if he prefers vanilla relationships, though he's probably only had a few vanilla encounters. Un says that having experience in something and truly enjoying it are two different things. He asks if Ji would like to try the kind of relationship he's offering. Jae wonders if declining would mean this is their last meeting. Un says that this type of relationship really appeals to him. Jae hesitates. He throws caution to the wind and says he's willing to try. Ji asks if Un is perhaps more interested in partners with more experience. Un says that it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. They could discuss this all day, but trying it would be much faster. Jae is already at Un's place, and he's extremely nervous. Since Ji mentioned that he knows a little about these kinds of relationships, Un wants to show him what it really means. He places his watch on the nightstand. He tells Ji that he doesn't know his limits, so he'll need to give a sign when it's time to stop. First, they decide to choose a safe word. Un says that today, Ji will still be able to say it. Jae wonders when he wouldn't be able to. Un suggests the word latte. Jae thinks it could ruin the mood entirely and asks if they really need it. Un explains that that's precisely the point and asks what words Ji has used in the past. Jae admits he's never used any safe words before. Un asks him to say he's just joking. He tells Ji that whether to stop or continue is entirely his choice. Safe words exist, so one can control the situation. Jae feels as if he's being scolded. Un sits down in a chair and tells him to kneel before him. Jae removes his shirt, then immediately kneels. Un is slightly surprised by his obedience. Ji asks if he should address him more formally. Un says that everything will be as Ji desires, but he doesn't mind if Jae speaks to him casually and asks if that suits him. Jae agrees. Un takes his chin and asks if he should stop if Jae starts to cry. Jae, confused, asks if he could really cry. Un says that last time he cried like a child. Ji explains it happened because he enjoyed it so much. Un says that's very sweet. He takes the boy's hand and tells him that now he'll teach him how to be a good boy. The next day, Un and Jae sit at the table talking. Un explains something to Ju that he seems unfamiliar with. He wonders if everything will be okay with him. He doesn't think he'll cause him any harm, and nothing he says seems too difficult. Yesterday, he was fine too. He looks at Un's smile and thinks, who cares? He's sure everything will work out. The last thing Un wants to tell him is that he doesn't want them interfering in each other's personal lives. Jae thinks he wouldn't want that either. Un says he tries not to date anyone while in these kinds of relationships, so he expects the same from Ji. Ji asks if they aren't going to date. Un says some people do date in these kinds of relationships. With that, he recalls his past relationships. He says it's not really his preference. At the restaurant, they are served lattes and iced Americanos. Un asks if Ji likes coffee. The boy responds that he can't live without it. Un mentions that he knows a hotel with an amazing cafe and asks how he feels about visiting it next time. Jae thinks he's so shameless and asks if he just wants to have a cup of coffee. Un laughs at that. Un says that's an option too, and then asks how Ji felt about last night. Jae thinks he should respond. Did he enjoy the time they spent together? Un asks if maybe he felt like running away and never coming back. Ji assures him that's definitely not the case. Un says he just wanted to make a good impression on him. He explains that he means he wants to have this kind of relationship with him and keep things going the same way. Hearing that, Jae feels a bit uneasy. Un thinks it's quite endearing. Jae starts coughing and Un hands him a napkin. Of course, Jae agrees. but no one has ever made such a proposition to him before. Is this how things are done now? Has he been out of the game for too long? He says he'd be happy to agree, but Un asks why he's looking at him that way and if he's trying to figure out whether he enjoyed it. Un asks why he thinks he bought him coffee. Jay thinks someone should put a label on this guy. Dangerous for your heart. Jay says that he's been acting like this even before they entered into this relationship. Un tells him not to worry. It was incredible. Jay says that makes him feel better. Un asks if he can take that as a yes. Jay responds with yes. Un suggests they discuss their rules and says he'll write them down. He has a draft, but didn't bring it with him, so he's going to explain everything briefly. He says Jay can feel free to take notes if he wants. He mentions that perhaps it'll make him feel more at ease since misunderstandings often happen in these matters. He adds that they'll finalize everything with the contract at their next meeting. G asks if they really need to sign a contract and if it's truly necessary. A relationship under contract. It seems a bit much to him. Un says that many people make verbal agreements these days, but he prefers having everything in writing, as he mentioned before, to avoid unnecessary problems. Besides, this is his first time doing this with someone inexperienced. He says that even without the contract, it's better to ensure they're on the same page so no one panics later on. Ji realizes that this is indeed important and that it's a great idea. He thinks that if Un is going to be so considerate about every detail, then it's not so scary after all. Un asks if they should set any time limits. Ji asks if people really decide in advance when a relationship will end. Un says that usually things happen unexpectedly, then asks if physical intimacy is expected. Ji replies that of course it is, and asks if that isn't obvious. Jay feels like he doesn't want to discuss this. It might be a sensitive topic for him. Something too personal? He says he understands and suggests they go ahead with it. He's sure everything will be fine. He thinks that maybe if they enjoy themselves, eat delicious food and spend time together, and just maintain their special relationship. If things stay like this, it's not so bad after all. After another night together, they said their goodbyes. They met again at work, as Jay is working on a project in the building where Un works. Jay apologizes for keeping him waiting. Un hugs him and says he wouldn't mind waiting a bit longer. Jay asks him not to worry and mentions that it's time for him to finish up his work. Un tells him that the hotel restaurant is closed today. Ji asks what he would like for dinner. Un says he's not very hungry and that anything will do. They get in the car together and drive off. Ji asks where they should go, but Un just sits there, seemingly mesmerized. He says Ji looks really cute behind the wheel. Jay feels like Un is flirting too much. Un suggests they get something delicious and adds that Jay's driving makes him hungry. He suggests a place on the map. Jay says it looks great. He thinks Un knows what he's talking about, and the heat rises within him. At the restaurant, Un asks if he's lucky enough to have company that lets him finish work at the same time every day. He asks if a manager shouldn't be buried in work. Jay says that's true, but he tries to leave early so everyone else can finish on time too. Plus, he needs time for dates. Un says he's a great leader, and Ji laughs, saying it's funny to hear that from a CEO. Un asks if he's close with his colleagues. Jay thinks Un is more observant than he imagined, separating work life from personal matters. Jay says they occasionally have lunch together, but that's about it. No one wants to get too close to the boss. He believes it's better not to cross that line. The conversation turns to this, and Un mentions that he feels very comfortable around Ji. Ji happily asks if that's really true. Un confirms it is, saying that in relationships like this, it's important to feel at ease. And for some reason, with Jay, he feels relaxed. Jay admits that he was worried it would be difficult for him because he's new to all of this. Un reassures him that it's not something he needs to worry about. He says that, of course, the rules of such relationships are important, but everything rests on the connection between two people, so in the end, the most important thing is who your partner is. Un says that if you're lucky enough to meet someone you can trust without compromising personal boundaries, you can build a great relationship in any context. Jay wants to make him cry, and then comfort him, and then break him. Ji hopes their relationship will be great, because that's what Un told him. Ji asks if Un is really that resilient. Un says he's glad to hear it, but asks what Ji is trying to imply. Ji replies that they can continue for as long as they want, and wonders if that's what he was supposed to say. At home, Ji thinks he should understand what he's gotten himself into and looks up information online about the kind of relationship Un seems to know so much about. What he finds surprises and unsettles him a little. He wonders if he can handle it. Un asks if he's been researching their relationship. Jay says yes. and doesn't understand why Un is looking at him like that. Un says he promised not to interfere in his personal matters, but watching something like that alone when he has a perfectly capable partner seems a bit off. He doesn't quite get it. Jae feels like Un has taken it the wrong way. Un says today he'll learn a lot. He starts teasing Ji. Jae asks him to wait. He feels like Un seems overly excited, considering it's just practice. At that moment, he couldn't have imagined just how painful it would be. It's nothing like what he saw. He knew it would be different, but the people in the videos looked like they were really enjoying it. Un says he's doing this because Ji assured him he was ready. He asks if it wasn't Jae who said he could handle this. Jae thought he could, and the tears were just his body's reaction. Un feels like Ji hasn't yet started to truly enjoy these kinds of relationships. The next morning, Jae washes his hands in the restroom. He reflects on how they've tried many different things together, and all of it feels so foreign to him. He's not sure if he'll ever get used to it. It could be enjoyable if it weren't so strange. One thing he knows for sure, he doesn't like all these games, but he can endure it, so it's worth continuing. He wonders if his preferences have become odd. At the very least, he knows they've changed. Un and Ji arrive to watch the fights. Un says they'll begin in 10 minutes. He grabs Jae by the waist, where his bruises are. The pain makes Jae grimace, and Un asks what's wrong. Jae says it's fine. He's just never been to a fight before. Un comments that perhaps it hasn't gained much popularity here yet. The fight begins. Two boxers meet in the ring. Jae watches the match, and it seems incredibly painful to him. He wonders if Un enjoys this, and he wouldn't say he's exactly thrilled by the spectacle. Un calmly sips his drink. Jae thinks it's definitely something different. Suddenly, Jae recalls his past. Un takes his hand and asks if he's all right. He notes that Jae's hands are cold. Jae says he's fine, and maybe it's because he's had a bit to drink. Un's hands feel very warm to him. Un tells him that if it's hard to watch, they can leave. Jae insists that he's fine. Un says there's no need to pretend and suggests they leave. It's one of those sports you either love or hate. This is Jae's first time, and it's not exactly a pleasant sight. After leaving the building, Jae apologizes and asks if this wasn't the fight Un had wanted to see. Un says it's not quite like that, finishing his drink. He explains that sometimes he comes here to relieve stress, and watching the fights is a kind of release. The tickets were from work. He adds that everyone holds something back, and he crushes the can in his hand. The desire to destroy, punish, dangerous and thrilling things, a certain hedonism. In that moment, Jae feels like he understands Un. Now, Un seems entirely different to him. Simple understanding isn't enough. It doesn't matter if he knows him. What if Un just isn't the person he thought? Still, Jae likes him, so he has to be honest. Jae wonders if he should confess that all of this isn't for him. But that would mean ending everything. Jae decides not to say a word because everything could end. He doesn't know what to do. He can't bring himself to have this conversation. Un asks Ji what's wrong with him. Jae says everything is fine. These relationships are only hurting him. He likes Un, which is why he's endured it all. But how can he say something like that to him? He has no idea what Un's life has been like. They grew close only through the practices Un taught him. Un is convinced that Jae enjoys the same things he does. But what if he's not like that? It would mean he can't meet Un's needs. Jae thinks Un will end it himself. But he likes Un too much to let that happen. That's why he can't say a word. For now, things are okay, and he believes it will all be fine. At least he hopes so. Sitting in the bathroom, Jae wonders what he should do next. How long has it been? 6 months? He's really at the end of his rope. If he doesn't confess soon, Un walks into the bathroom and says Jae's been bathing for too long. Un wanted a normal relationship of this kind, but if only Joe were like that. He takes Jae by the chin and says he looks awful, asking if he's tired. In truth, Jae is mentally exhausted. Un says he's lucky. He bought him a bath bomb. He drops it into the water. Jae thinks it's so sweet to enjoy a bath bomb with Un. He thanks him for it and thinks how pleasant this is. He never imagined he'd fall this deeply for him. In the bedroom, Un drays Jae's wet hair and puts a shirt on him. Suddenly, Jae asks if Un would like to do something else with him. Un asks why he's asking so suddenly. He once said that they're all searching for something. Does that mean he'd like to try even more? Jae wants to satisfy him and says he feels like Un is holding back. He has no idea what his partner really wants. Un says there are many things he wants to do with him. And leaning close, he whispers that he knows how much Ji hurts and that he doesn't like to rush things. Suddenly, Ji realizes that he doesn't actually want to satisfy Un, and that these kinds of relationships will never make him happy. They begin to kiss, and Jay understands that they want entirely different things. He knows with this realization that he should stop, but he doesn't want to stop. He wants to keep seeing him. She returns home. He greets his beloved cat. He asks the cat what it would do if it really liked someone. He says, "Daddy will take a shower first, then I'll feed you." Undressing in front of the mirror, he sees a body covered in bruises. He doesn't understand himself. How can he still like after all these trials? He feels like he's completely lost his mind. Most people prefer not to burden themselves with feelings, especially in relationships like these. The next day, showed Ji a list of rules. After reading them, Jay says is very considerate of him. Responds that he's glad to hear that. Jay thinks is a kind and caring person, but it feels more like courtesy than true affection. Why hadn't he noticed this before? Had clearly defined boundaries, avoiding the emotional strain that these kinds of relationships don't require. When emotions cloud clear thinking, everything becomes blurred. Jay wants to get closer to him, but he knows would inevitably run away. Even the water from the shower feels like pressure. During their next meeting, reminds Jay that he doesn't intend to date him. But Jay says they're already doing everything couples do, so what would change? He quickly apologizes for saying something so foolish. Fun? The desire to dominate? Even if that's all they have, what is he supposed to do? He decides that he just has to accept it. He's not ashamed of his feelings for and regrets nothing. He admits to himself that he's been acting like a child and thinks that he should just stick to the agreement. It's the only way to stay with him. He just needs to muster the strength. He starts postponing their meetings. It's already happened 4 times, and wonders if he's truly that busy. He decides they're adults, and he's sure Ji must have legitimate reasons. But if Jie begins to harbor hopes, will have to break things off with him. There's always a way out. But why does it feel so awful? In a bar, meets with his protege, Udo. They haven't seen each other in a while, and the young man greets his boss. He asks why is here all alone. Tells him he should be more careful when coming to places like this. Udo asks why, and if it's because he debuted. Confirms that's exactly the reason. Udo reminds him that he said it wouldn't be a problem. Replies that was before his debut. Now he's a public figure. Udo says that even if something happens, no one will find out. He adds that the last time that eccentric went off the rails, not a single article was written. The people who come here obviously have money and resemble players. Actors, politicians, even religious leaders. What difference would an idol's presence make? Udo comments that what they're talking about involves rather refined tastes. Asks if his band knows that their youngest member has such sophisticated tastes. Udo says that almost everyone suspects, except that know-it-all leader, and asks not to tell him. Says he'll think about it. Udo suggests that tonight, their accomplices should work a little harder at keeping secrets. He puts his hand on Un's shoulder, but tells him to cut it out. Suddenly, the manager approaches them. She mentions that she hasn't seen the two of them together in a while. She tells Udo that has been acting strangely lately and asks if he's noticed. Udo starts laughing. She says that Un's current relationship has been going on for quite some time. It's the longest she's seen as far as she knows. Last time, someone was even turned away for his sake, and just had a drink and went home. He used to always stay with someone for the night, but now he's turning everyone down. She heard that he even canceled a meeting with all the guys who had been patiently waiting their turn. She says there are rumors that Mr. is actually seeing someone. Udo asks if their boss has a new partner and laughs loudly. Realizes he wants to be with Jay. His face, his hesitation, his gripping hands, and everything about him. Can no longer pretend he doesn't care. He wonders what to do next. It's still too early to make conclusions about the relationship. Snapping out of his thoughts, asks the manager since when she's known so much about his personal life. The woman admits she crossed a line. She offers him a drink and suggests they forget about it. Turns to Udo. Jay decides to meet for the first time in a long while. Can he control his emotions? He reassures himself that he can. That was the whole point of his restraint. He just needs to avoid crossing the line. Jay walks past people gossiping about how Mr. has a boyfriend. He decides to just play along. After all, that's what wants. When they meet, comments on how long it's been since they last saw each other and notices Jay's new haircut. Jay says he changed his style a bit because of the heat. Says he likes it. Ji thanks him, trying to stay calm, and suggests they have a drink since they're already here. Un mentions that because it's a holiday tomorrow, the bar is too crowded. So he suggests they drink at home. Ji says it's a good idea, and of course, he doesn't mind. Un wonders what's off with his partner today and whether he's this excited because they haven't seen each other in a while. Outside the house, Jae tries to convince himself that the invitation doesn't mean anything. Un asks if he's right in guessing Jae hasn't had dinner yet. As they enter the elevator, Jun, an acquaintance of Ja, notices them. Un invites him inside and mentions that it's still nice and cool here. He tells Ja to sit and relax. Jae thought he had finally understood Un, and that it's better not to dwell on it. From the kitchen, Un asks if Jae likes cheese. Jae says he's not picky and tries not to compare everything happening with real relationships. He thinks that Un is just being hospitable since they're at his home. Jae can't understand why Un seems perfect in everything. After dinner, they sit together on the couch. Jae is so full he can't even move. Un suggests he stay the night since Ji has the day off tomorrow. Ji agrees to the offer easily. Un says they've spent a lot of time already, so he asks if they should even bother sleeping tonight. Un pulls him tightly into his arms, and Jae shouts that he hasn't showered yet. Un firmly kisses him on the lips. Jae feels like he's somehow forgotten how persistent Un can be. This time, Un seems unusually relentless to him. Un says that tonight he just feels like taking things a bit further. After all, Jae allows it.